welcome everyone to the Snow Horse Marketing Podcast. I have Ron here today. He is the founder of Nuttnest, and he is a top 10 finalist in the NEA Dell Technologies pitch competition. Thank you so much, Ron, for being here today.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm super excited for our conversation today.
Yeah, you and I met just like a month ago, and we had a similar convo, and I'm so glad to be able to share this with others. So you and I are very much aligned in what we've discussed with about making sure a business has scalable systems. It's the only way to really be able to sustain growth in a business. And I know we talked about that a while ago, but just tell me a little bit about your experience with creating scalable systems. I know it had a great impact on why you even created Nuttnest, and you've been able to scale your own business. So tell me a little bit about what got you into creating systems for businesses.
Yeah, so when you start out a business, there's some amazing things that happen. And one of the things that don't happen a lot of times is we don't think about recording what we're doing or what that looks like. And that's those systems. So growing a business and scaling a business, it's required, but it's kind of an afterthought. And I think a lot of times we go into stuff and we think, oh, this is great that I'm here, but we're not thinking about what is that end outcome we want. People start a business because they want to spend more time with their family, or they want more money, or they just want to not work 100 hours a week. But they focus so much on just the business and they don't focus on building a business that doesn't necessarily require their ability to be there. And I put it that way just because I think it's one of the easiest ways for people to grasp the kind of systems that I'm talking about. Not that you don't need to be there, but in order to grow your business, you have to systematize every aspect of it so somebody else can do that job. Because if you're just one person that's continuing doing it as you grow, you're awesome at what you do, so you're going to continue getting busier. You're just going to work more. So you have to be willing to put systems in place. And what does that look like? That looks like taking the time to outline what exactly you do when you do something. And then this also gives you the ability to say, does that work? And if it doesn't work, you can go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, and well, I think when I first started building out a CSR team, so they manage our clients day to day, they send out the monthly reports, they meet with them, and it's a very, very important job. And I remember when I first started doing that a couple of years ago, a lady who was working for me gave me an amazing suggestion. She's like, why don't we just write out everything we do step by step? And we started super, super simple with just like a Google Doc, and we just put the buttons in, to click to the different documents we use and the different scripting we use and the different, email templates and everything. We started super basic. But I remember even doing that and training other people on it. It was kind of like I don't know if you remember or did this back in elementary school, the experiment of like write the instructions how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you write it out. And no matter how clear you write it, someone could still do it the wrong way. And I feel like it was a real life experience of that, of like, how detailed do I need to create these directions? How systemized, how user-friendly does this have to be so that other people can duplicate it? And I remember that was just such a learning curve for me, to learn how to just have someone copy what someone else is doing well.
Yeah, I mean, I come from building systems. I got out of the Marine Corps in 2011 and went into residential construction. So 10 years ago, 12, 13, 14, it was different. So like what you're talking about, where you're writing this out, just SOPs, standard operating procedures, and you're getting very granular along the way on what that looks like. I mean, operating books used to be like this thick. I say used to be because now we move into a world with virtual assistants and all of this kind of stuff where You can go on Zoom, and this is one of the biggest pieces, one of the greatest pieces of advice I've ever heard when it comes to how to help create systems, is anything that you do, you should be recording yourself on Zoom, doing it and talking about why you're doing this, where you're moving this. Like when I do my podcast and I do everything, the production, all of that, creating a Zoom video on this is why I have this folder, this is how I do this is how this goes here, this is how I automate this. Now you have a video that you can say, hey, Sam, you're now going to do this. Here's the video on exactly what I do. Watch that, and then let's get together. We'll talk about it for 30 minutes. And then we'll dissect it, see what for questions you have. To me, systematizing a business nowadays is 100 times easier than it's ever been. You just have to be willing to do it and focus on it.
Well, and you can just, I love how we can just screen record like what we're doing step by step. I even love, like, we use a lot of tools like our execution team. They're the team who actually builds out campaigns for our clients. A lot of the tools we use have knowledge bases. So sometimes we don't even have to build it. We can just tap into existing knowledge bases, which is super cool, and so we just add, our own flavor on top, the stuff that we do that's a little different than the mainstream. And I love how simplified it's been. I also realized, as I've worked with multiple different types of team members and multiple different departments, different people learn different ways, and that is something that's very interesting to learn as well. I mean, one of our goals at Snowhorse, and I know you have a similar goal, we've talked about it, is to have a business not only be able to manage itself, but to grow by itself. And there's so many ways to do that. I feel it's so important. I remember a statistic, I'll probably get these numbers wrong, but from what I remember, it was something like, 50% of businesses have their door open after 5 years. Only 20% of the businesses can run without the founder or owner operator in it day to day. And then it was either 5% or 2%. It was super low. Only like 5 or 2% of the businesses could grow without the owner operators or founders involved in the day-to-day. And I remember hearing that statistic and being like, wow, why is this such a rare skill? And I even was at an event this weekend where there were a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small business owners at, and I had some incredible conversations with them. And I know I've had hesitations in believing, can we actually create this so that it grows by itself, right? And as I talked to these other business owners, I just realized none of them actually had the goal of letting the business grow by itself. Like you were saying, many people, they just want to work for themselves, or the memes we all see, right? I stopped working at 9 to 5 and now I work 24/7, And I think, I don't know, just what have you experienced with that? People just being willing to delegate, willing to go through this process of creating systems.
Yeah. I think one of the amazing things is you hear, oh, but I love what I do and I want to be here. I want to do this. Well, I do too, but I understand my capacity only goes so far. Like, that's everybody. So we have to look at this as not as, hey, I want to build a business that I don't have to be at. For some people, that is the goal. I just want to build something that self-runs. Or to me, I want to build something that is successful, whether I'm there or not. I think a true definition of leadership and success of growing something is for it to be able to do what it does, whether you're sitting there or not. And I talked to some high-level entrepreneurs, the guys that are doing 200 million a year, that have some of their biggest days when they're not present. And that's a credit to their leadership. And they haven't built these systems and scaled their businesses because they don't want to be involved. I think that's a huge misconception, where people are like, oh, you just want to do all this, you want to add all this stuff in these systems so you can scale it and not be involved. When you have a lot of people that stay involved, but you have to have systems in order to get you to a place where you can make that decision. or you
Yeah.
can pay yourself to work 20 hours a week. Like there's a limit there. And I think one thing we haven't touched on with systems that is one of the most critical things is they have to be trainable. And you touched on different personalities and everything, but a system, if you can't train somebody, or if somebody else can't train somebody to use the system, if it's way overcomplicated, way in the weeds, it would never work. So we have to look at it from a perspective of, we want to build stuff that everybody can do. Well, you're going to hire the best. You're going to bring them in. But at the end of the day, it's probably not you. So let's make this as simple as we possibly can, and make it so don't think about it as you can teach it to somebody else. Can two hires later teach it to the next hire after that? Because that's when you
Yes.
start getting power.
Yes. No, that's where, I mean, we're starting to test that out. We're getting to that point, Snow Horse, that we're starting to test that out. And we're finding new things that we need to improve as we're going, second, third touch, deep. And it's incredible to me how much we are learning about how people learn, and I feel like so many people forget that. It's anyone who's worked in sales or worked in business, the old acronym KISS, keep it super simple, or keep it simple, stupid. Um, and it's so true. Like, we want to make sure that these systems are duplicatable. I mean, it's something we do with our clients. Like, and I know you do with, your system helps people communicate with customers and make sure that that's super simple. I mean, when we do our digital marketing for our clients, we have what we call recipes, right? They're the instructions, how per industry or per business type we build stuff out, because we know it works. And I think as you build more and more systems, like even as a business, having systems gives a lot of clients confidence in us. And I feel like, to your point, a lot of people build systems not so they just don't have to work anymore, but it allows them to have, I feel like business owners have a responsibility to their employees, and they have a responsibility to their clients, to be able to continue to use the services, continue to work. And if you don't create a system, like, what if you have a heart attack one day, or you have a family emergency, or what if one of the partners, heaven forbid, passes away? Can you keep these people employed? I know I've worked with clients where the owner operated passed away and they had to cancel everything, close everything. A business that was doing a couple million a year just goes from a couple million a year to nothing overnight. And it's because they weren't able to build out those systems. And so I think having that long-term perspective of, you're building something to last. You're not just building something to keep yourself occupied or to use your own talents, but something that's going to support a whole system.
Yeah, I've spent some time in what I refer to as like whitewater, like the rapids. Like that's what I feel like when you're growing a business, you spend a lot of time there. And the only way to ever truly leave that is to create the systems to be able to not, so you get to that calm water. Uh, I it's amazing when you start talking about that kind of stuff, because we've all been there. We're all spinning our heads. We're trying to figure out how do we get out of here so it's easier, not just for us but our employees. But I think as leaders, all too often we overcomplicate it and we overthink it. We think like this has to be like this, the Taj Mahal of systems, to be able to funnel down exactly what I do to make this outcome happen, when that's not the reality. Like, we might be good, but like we're not God. So like, let's just do what we do and get a system put in place. And if somebody says, oh man, this is really easy what you did over here to make this outcome, that is an amazing thing for you. Like, don't look at that as a netty code. I think people look at it as, if you create a simple system that creates a result, like people think, oh, I'm just not as smart, or I'm not as good of a leader, or I'm not as a trendsetter as I think I am. But in reality, most people can't create something simple that creates a result. that should be an accomplishment. It shouldn't be looked at as, oh, they're going to think I don't do anything. Like, it takes a lot to create that.
Well, I'll tell you what, we actually, on our sales teams, we reward people for creating systems. If they go create an email sequence or an outreach campaign, or our SDRs create a new appointment setting system that is working, we reward them. Like, we're like, if you can simplify this for us, all the better. Like, one of my goals is to be able to create everything to be so systemized that people aren't like, our bots and our AI and our systems are taking care of like 50 to 60% of the workload. And if we can have just, strategic thinkers in the business who are managing the systems, that's what I want. Like, I want people who can manage systems. And I know that's a very different way of thinking than it's been like for the past 100 years. But there's so much opportunity now, even with bots and AI and whatnot, to just, we have an appointment setter who does phenomenal. She meets quota every week, every single week without fail. And what we've done, we just duplicate what she's done, created a system so that everyone's able to do the same thing. She perfected it. All right, now let's systemize it so we can lift the whole team up. And I feel like when you have that shared learning and that shared goal and you're able to systemize it, and now not even with trainings, but even with, there's programs and systems and CRMs and all sorts of stuff where you can have a computer doing a lot of it for you. And then you're just hiring those problem solvers who, if there's ever a way to improve it or to optimize it, that's where they come in and tweak.
Yeah, I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what putting systems in place is. It's taking what works at a high level and reproducing it so others can be successful at a high level. Uh, I've done all of this up until now where you had to scale people, where, we went from a handful of people to over 100 in a few years. And when you're scaling people and scaling a business like that, it's so critical to just keep it simple, leave the ego at the door, and just do what works. I truly believe that we really overthink a lot of this, and we get in our own head, which leads to not taking action, because then we feel like no one else can do this besides us.
I think that's
I
ego. I think that's
yeah.
ego when we think that way.
But I mean, I think, like, I always think like there's probably somebody that can do this better than me. Like, I have what I think are some of my superpowers, but most of this stuff is not. Like, I feel like I'm very good at like putting together a vision and starting the ball rolling. And then it's about finding that person that can take it the rest of the way, take it in the next 85% and understand my vision. And that's where, those systems come into play, because I can say, hey, here's how I'm doing it. And it probably sucks, but this is the system I'm using. And you hire somebody that is better at that, they're going to be able to take your system and be able to make that system even better. I mean, I feel like I'm overutilizing the word system at this point in time.
Oh, not to worry. No, it's so important. It really will. Well, I know we are running out of time, so I want to thank you so much for being here today and joining the podcast and talking about this is just such an important aspect of life and of business and making it sustainable. And I love interacting with like-minded founders such as yourself who let's let it grow by itself. Let's create systems to let it grow. So thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's been a great conversation.